Hello everybody, welcome to a new video. I have been painting a lot of portraits lately to various degrees of success. Some of the paintings turned out better than the other ones, and I wanted to show you how I deal with the struggles and try to improve through failures. I started with this gouache painting in my Royal Talent sketchbook. Similar to how Emily Hughes starts her paintings, I sketched with a red pastel pencil and then smudged it with a napkin paper. The painting part was a challenge. It was quite difficult to keep the value difference because of the drying shift, and I was just fighting with my brush the whole time. My synthetic flat brushes were just too springy. I think the fibers were too tight for gouache, so it was very hard to rinse them clean in water. It could be that I'm just so used to watercolor, it only takes a quick rinse and it will be clean, but gouache takes a little bit more effort than that. The second one is a watercolor painting. I like how the reference picture made her skin look very sun-kissed, and I like the shadow shapes on her face and shoulders, but her expression feels a bit empty, like she's just modeling for a commercial or something, and I usually try to avoid references like this. It just doesn't have much story in it. And it's sad that I kind of failed to make her skin tone look glowy and luminous like how it should be under the sunlight. I think I made the shadow parts too dull, and it made her face look a bit like clay instead of skin. I guess it was because I totally forgot to use the saturated colors to show the subsurface scattering. But I did like how I painted her chest. The warmth from Winsor Yellow really gives that toasty feeling, which I think was very nice. The next painting was made with oil pastels. I started by using the dried up gouache on my palette as underpainting. I think it's a color similar to Naples yellow. I also marked out her eyes with colored pencils just so that I don't lose them in the process. And then I just started painting or drawing with my oil pastels. I think it feels more like painting than drawing. In my native language, in Chinese, there's no difference between drawing or painting, so I didn't quite understand the difference at first, but I guess it doesn't matter. I assume that drawing is more line-based or more about structures and likeness, but I think you can draw with a paintbrush or do renderings with colored pencil too, so I don't know. It doesn't matter, really. I try to include my color choices in the frame so that you can see them too. And I noticed that using 3 different brands wasn't such a good idea when I'm kind of rusty with oil pastels. I didn't remember their names and textures very well, and I was mainly just focusing on the value and color temperatures. So the different textures kind of throw me off a little bit because I wasn't paying attention to which brand I was using. I would say that the Mongyo Gallery has the hardest texture and Snelly has the most texture variations. And when I layered the hard oil pastels over the soft ones, it kind of destroyed that beautiful impasto effect, and it also didn't feel very pleasant. So after this painting, I decided to reorganize my oil pastels and use only one brand in each painting in the future, just to experiment to see if there's any improvement. I don't know why I was super disappointed with this painting the day I finished it. There were so many things I wanted to change about it, but days later I started to like it more. It really wasn't as terrible as I first thought. It rarely happens to me that I change my mind days after a painting is finished, but I'm still glad it's not the other way around. The next day I wanted to paint with gouache, and it turned out to be one of my biggest failures. I had so much trouble with the value and layering. I think mostly I was just panicking the whole time. I just couldn't get anything to look right, even if I had the reference right in front of me. And the harder I tried to correct, the weirder it started to look. After a while, I just realized that it's not really salvageable anymore, and I'm not learning anything from it. The only thing I can do is to correct the mistakes digitally. But throughout the process, I wasn't too upset that it didn't look the way I wanted to be. I tried to see it as a clear message that there are certain aspects I need to sit down and figure out why it went so bad. And I tried not to get offended by this kind of failures, because the quicker I figure out why I made these mistakes, the faster I can learn from them. And in this case, I think the problem is the value shift and consistency. So throughout this week, I did a lot of experiments with gouache. I tried layering different values over each other. I tried matching specific oil pastel colors with gouache, and also wet on wet mixing on paper, just trying to get really well acquainted with this medium. And I do partially blame the brushes, because I still haven't found the right brushes that make me enjoy painting with gouache. So I went to a new art supply store in the city I live in. It's not new, it's just that I haven't been there before. They have so many more brushes than the other store that I used to go to. But I realized that the brushes I liked usually came with very long handles for some reason. Maybe they're meant for acrylics, not for gouache. It's either that or they're pretty expensive. So in the end, I just decided to try one smaller brush from Da Vinci. It's a flat brush from their Fit series. And when I saw that they had oil pastels from Sennelier too, I just couldn't resist and got 4 new colors. When I got home, I started to reorganize my oil pastel storage. This time I wanted to be resembling the color wheel, with warmer colors on the right and cooler colors on the left. I think it's gonna help me choose colors better. And I must confess that I bought way too many oil pastels this year. It happened a few times that I added 2 or 3 of them in my orders so that I can get free shipping. So it felt like free, but not really. It's like really unnecessary to have this many, and there are a few of them look very similar to each other, and there's just no need to have both. And I think I need to stop buying oil pastels. It's starting to feel like wasteful at this point, since I haven't been using them all that much. But I do plan to make many portraits with them in this 100 heads challenge.
When you keep it inside. And another important ingredient is perfectionism. So it's a very high standard.
The next day I wanted to go back to my watercolor, and I really enjoyed this one. It is a very expressive reference. I'm using my Casanio flat brushes, and the paints are mostly from Winsor & Newton. And I'm also using Arches cold press paper this time. It feels very pleasant. There is something so pleasant about Arches cold pressed. It dries very slowly, and it almost feels like it understands what I want to do with the water and paint. It never surprises me or sabotages me. But I mostly enjoyed this reference photo. Like, it's kind of up to interpretation. Is he feeling relieved or desperate about something, or is he just really sleepy? It's kind of hard to tell, but I think it's a beautiful image. For the shadow in this picture, I tried to alter the shapes so that it looked a little bit more blocky or sharper. I like that effect, but I wish I left out the white highlights in a similar manner instead of lifting the colors. I think it could look better if they had sharper edges too. I don't know if it's the brown matter, it was kind of hard to lift. But overall, it was okay. I still really enjoyed this piece. And I just want to say that it might look like I'm pushing myself through the failures here, but I'm actually not forcing myself or anything. If I feel like I want to take a break from painting portraits or painting at all, I will always give myself the permission to stop doing this and go do whatever I want to do, because I want to keep art as something like a treat, and I want to look forward to it. I want to crave doing it. I don't want it to be some work that needs to get done. I think that would just take the joy out of it. That could be the reason that I haven't experienced any art blocks for the past 3.5 years, because I don't push myself very much. I like a comfortable amount of discomfort, and by that I mean I don't go for very extreme challenges or have a very rigid schedule. I try my best to protect the fun part of making art, and I don't want it to get contaminated by too much motivational energy. I don't know if you know what I mean, but I think for me it can very easily slip into a toxic place. And for those of you who didn't know, I started learning piano at a very young age, and the process involved a lot of forceful motivation. And that's just not how I can thrive. And I still find it difficult to enjoy playing the piano to this day, so I really don't want my art practice going in the same direction. It might work for many others, but I don't think that's who I am. Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you guys find this video interesting, even though the paintings weren't the greatest. But I hope it could be helpful if you're also going through challenges. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.